She walked in quietly, almost invisible to the crowd. Dressed in a simple cardigan and worn-out jeans, she didn't look like someone who belonged at a professional dart tournament. The arena buzzed with chatter and laughter, but it wasn't long before the whispers started. People snickered, nudged each other, and made sleek comments under their breath. "Who let someone's mom in?" One man chuckled. Another shook his head and said, "This is going to be over quick." But she didn't flinch, she didn't argue. She just stood there, gently gripping her darts, eyes scanning the board like she'd seen it 1,000 times before. Some in the crowd thought it was nerves. Others thought she might not even know the rules. After all, what could a quiet, unassuming woman possibly know about a game that's dominated by loud cheers and sharper tongues? The announcer hesitated for a second before calling her name. There was a strange silence, just a beat longer than usual, as she stepped up to the line. Then she raised her hand. The dart left her fingers like it had a mind of its own. One smooth motion. No drama, no flair, just precision. And then, thunk asterisk, dead center, a perfect score. The room fell silent, eyes widened, mouths dropped, and just like that, everything changed. Who was this woman? Where did she learn to throw like that? And more importantly, what was she about to do next? The crowd that once mocked her now leaned in, drawn to the mystery. Because one thing was suddenly very clear. This wasn't just a lucky shot. Not by a long shot. And as she reached for her second dart, the air in the room grew thick with anticipation. She didn't smile, didn't even look surprised. It was as if hitting a perfect score was the most normal thing in the world. The crowd didn't know what to make of it. Whispers turned into murmurs, and people started leaning toward one another, asking the same question. Who is she? Her name was Anna. No flashy background, no history in the dart scene, at least not one anyone knew about. She wasn't sponsored. Didn't show up with a coach or a team jacket. Just a small, quiet woman from a nearby town who'd signed up for the open bracket with little more than a handwritten entry form and a calm look in her eyes. But what they didn't know was that Anna had been playing darts since she was a teenager. Not in arenas or clubs, but in the back of her father's old pub. Every night after closing time, while the jukebox played softly and the chairs were stacked, she practiced. For years. Not for trophies, not for money. Just because she loved the game. She never had the chance to compete before. Life happened. Her father got sick, the pub closed, and she had to take a job at the local grocery store to make ends meet. Darts became something she did in quiet moments, never for attention. But now, standing under bright lights and in front of hundreds of doubting eyes, that quiet hobby was becoming something else. Her second dart hovered in her fingers. The room, once so loud and dismissive, now hung on her every move. And just before she threw it, a voice from the crowd shouted something sharp, something familiar. Anna froze for a second, her eyes narrowed. Who said it? And why did it shake her? The answer would change everything. The voice that cut through the silence wasn't just random, it was familiar. Anna's hand lowered slightly, her eyes scanning the crowd. Near the back, half hidden behind a group of regulars, stood a man she hadn't seen in years. Mark. A former league player, once known for his arrogant streak and sharp tongue. But to Anna, he was more than just an old name from the dart world. He was a ghost from her past. Years ago, Mark had played at her father's pub. He was younger then, louder, always the one soaking up attention. He used to laugh when Anna practiced alone, tossing comments like, "Cute shot. Maybe someday you'll play with the real ones." She never forgot those words, even after all these years. Seeing him now, grinning like nothing had changed, sent a ripple through her calm. But this wasn't just personal anymore. Mark was more than a heckler, he was also competing today. Word had it he breezed through the early rounds, already expecting a spot in the finals. And if Anna kept playing like this, their paths would cross again, only this time, not as background noise, but as direct opponents. Backstage, Other players were starting to take notice too. A few looked uneasy, whispering to each other, wondering if this nobody would be the one to upset the bracket. Some respected the performance. Others looked annoyed. She was an outsider, and in a game where egos run high, that made her a threat. As Anna stepped back to the line, dart in hand, she could feel the pressure closing in. Every eye was on her, not just curious now, but watching closely, calculating, because something was becoming clear to everyone in that room. This wasn't going to be just another game. The room was still holding its breath when Anna released her second dart. It sailed through the air in a smooth, steady line. Thunk. Another perfect shot. The silence broke into scattered gasps and murmurs. Even the announcer hesitated before calling the score, almost in disbelief. 2 bullseyes back to back. Anna didn't celebrate. She barely blinked. But inside, her heart was pounding. Not from nerves, but from everything this moment meant. For years, she'd kept her skill quiet, hidden in the corners of a life that rarely allowed room for dreams. And now the spotlight was blinding. Her third dart was already between her fingers when she felt it again, that weight. Not just from the eyes watching her, but from the past closing in. Mark hadn't said another word, but his presence lingered heavy and smug. He stood with arms crossed, like he already knew how the story would end. Behind the scenes, the tournament board was lighting up. Word had spread fast. Some unknown woman was tearing through the bracket, hitting perfect scores, shaking the balance. A few reporters started circling, cameras getting closer, waiting to catch the next throw. The seasoned players, once relaxed and joking around, now stood tense, studying her every move. Anna could feel the shift. This wasn't just a dart tournament anymore. It was a test of patience, of history, of whether she could keep her focus when everything inside her wanted to crack. She raised her hand again. And just as she was about to throw, a loud crash came from backstage. A voice yelled out, angry, sharp. Then hurried footsteps. The crowd turned. The officials looked rattled, but Anna didn't move. Her third dart was still in her hand. The air had gone thick again, and something was coming, something no one was ready for. The noise backstage grew louder, more frantic. A security guard rushed across the side of the stage, speaking into his radio with urgency. The crowd was now half-turned, caught between curiosity and confusion. But Anna didn't move. Her hand was still raised, dart in position, her eyes locked on the board. Then the announcer's voice cracked through the mic, hesitant. We were going to pause briefly. Groans filled the room. Someone shouted, "Come on," but the tension was too thick to ignore. The official motioned for Anna to step back, just for a moment. She lowered her arms slowly, trying to hold onto the rhythm that had carried her this far. What no one knew yet, what Anna herself didn't know, was that the commotion had everything to do with her. Backstage, a dispute had broken out. Someone had filed a formal protest against her. An anonymous competitor claimed she wasn't registered properly, that she used someone else's ID to enter, that her scores weren't legitimate. It was a dirty move, and a desperate one, but it was gaining traction. People were whispering. A few players were nodding, and standing near the chaos, with arms still crossed and that same smug smile, was Mark. Anna saw the officials huddling, speaking in low tones. A clipboard passed between them. Her name was being mentioned, too often. The same name she'd written carefully on the entry form days ago, unsure if she'd even have the courage to show up. She knew what this was. A challenge, not on the board, but off it. Not about skill, but about whether she belonged here at all. The dart was still in her hand, but now the question wasn't just whether she could hit the bullseye again. It was whether they'd even let her throw it. The room was heavy with tension as the officials called Anna forward. The protest had been serious, but after a quick check, it turned out the paperwork she'd submitted was in order. Her name matched the ID. No tricks, no false claims. The protest was nothing more than a desperate attempt to shake her confidence and maybe slow her down. Mark's smug smile faltered, and the crowd shifted. Whispers turned into quiet murmurs of respect. Anna stepped back to the line, heart pounding, but a steady calm settled over her. This was her moment. She raised her arm, focused on the board like never before. The dart left her hand in a perfect arc, striking the bullseye again. Cheers erupted, louder than before. The crowd was on its feet, no longer mocking but celebrating. She had proven she belonged, not because of papers or protests, but because of skill. But just as she was about to claim victory, the unexpected happened. A man pushed through the crowd, a stranger, holding an old, worn photo. He shouted her name and held it up for everyone to see. The photo showed a younger Anna standing proudly with a trophy from a junior dart championship, dated years ago, one no one had ever known about. The stranger explained he was a sports historian, researching forgotten champions. Anna wasn't just a simple woman with a hidden talent. She was once a prodigy forced to step away from the game for reasons no one had heard before. The room fell silent again. The story wasn't over, not by a long shot. The mystery of why Anna disappeared, and why she was only now returning to the spotlight, became the new question everyone wanted answered. Her perfect shots were just the beginning. What came next could change everything. Anna took a deep breath as the photo was passed around, the crowd's eyes filled with curiosity and newfound respect. For years, she had kept her past quiet, not out of shame, but because life had pulled her away from the game she loved. The sickness of her father, the closing of the pub, and the need to support her family had made her put darts aside. But those years hadn't erased her skill or passion. They had only sharpened them in silence. As the tournament continued, Anna found herself not just playing for a trophy, but for a second chance. She wasn't just the simple woman the crowd had once mocked. She was a symbol of quiet strength and resilience, proving that sometimes the greatest talents go unnoticed until the right moment. Mark approached her after the game, this time without his usual arrogance. He nodded with respect, acknowledging not only her skill but the story behind it. The rivalry wasn't over, but it had changed. Now it was about the game, and the journey that brought them both here. Anna's story spread beyond the tournament. Local news covered her return to the darts world, inspiring many who thought their dreams had slipped away. Her perfect scores weren't just numbers on a board. They were reminders that perseverance matters, no matter where life takes you. As she stood backstage, holding the trophy she had won fair and square, Anna smiled softly. The journey wasn't easy, but it was hers. And for the first time in a long while, she felt at home, right where she belonged, standing tall, ready for whatever came next. Her first shot had been perfect, but it was her courage that truly hit the mark.